Just wait till it sings. Do a test. Start to talk.
Huh? Welcome to Village Media's live coverage of the 2014 municipal election. As of 8 p.m., the polls closed, and we will continue to broadcast live from our studio as Sault Ste. Marie chooses its next mayor and council. Our SooToday and Local2 journalists are out where the candidates are tonight and will be bringing you live reactions and insights as soon as the results are known. Earlier today, I had a chance to talk with our very own Mike Purvis, who had the opportunity to sit down with each of the candidates to discuss some of the major issues within Sault Ste. Marie and to talk about some of the candidates to keep an eye on tonight as the results come in. Mike, give us a sense of what's going on.
Well, I think obviously everyone's going to be watching the race for mayor and who comes out on top there. We've got Debbie Amoroso, who's coming off her first term as mayor, and then we've got a challenger, Christian Provenzano, who we've seen run federally before under the Liberal banner. You know, Amoroso's obviously been pointing to her record over the last 4 years, of course, as you would as an incumbent, while Provenzano's been kind of saying that there's a need for change. He's been bringing up some issues that are maybe pet peeves of the business community, tax levels, downtown development. While Amoroso, maybe she got a boost from the announcement that the port of Algoma, at least the beginnings, are gonna go ahead. So, you know, of course, there's other challengers as well. We've got Heather Cook, we've got Robin Cool, we've got Ted Johnston, and we've got Austin Williams. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out tonight. Okay.
When it comes to council, where do you see the biggest chance for a shakeup?
That's a tough question, but obviously Ward 3, we have no incumbents there. We've had Pat Mick and Brian Watkins decide not to run this time around, so it kind of leaves things wide open. Matthew Shoemaker's been campaigning pretty hard in that ward. We've been seeing a lot from him. We've got Judy Hoopanen, we've got Dave Pollock, Luke McMichael, Tim Tebow. They're all looking to fill those seats, so there's no shortage of competition in that ward. You know, we don't know what's going to happen there, but that's one to watch for sure.
Okay. Now, Ward 6 also has an open seat with the absence of Frank Manzo.
Yes, definitely. Frank Manzo is not running this time. He hasn't been at council for some time now due to health issues, I guess. And we've got a lot of people trying to fill his seat. Obviously, there's an incumbent there, Joe Kropotich, so he's going to be strong. Ross Romano, a local lawyer, he's been doing a lot of campaigning in that ward. We've also got a former councillor, Ozzie Grandinetti, who's trying to regain his seat. We've got Wanda McQueen, who people know from her time with the Algoma District School Board. She's looking to fill a seat there, looking to win a seat there. And we've also got Brian Demansky, who's been trying to position himself as kind of someone who would carry on what Frank Manzo would have been doing, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what about Ward 1? We've heard so much about the water quality issues that people in that ward have been experiencing.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly the most obvious issue that's going on in that ward, and in that ward more than any ward in the city, probably. The incumbents there are strong ones. Steve Butland, former MP, former mayor, Paul Christian. Both of those councillors have tried to make their voices heard in terms of that water issue. Is the public going to think it's enough? That's maybe an issue there. So we've got a lot of challengers. We've got Derek Kroll. He's put on a strong show in the debate, and then we've got a number of others also looking to win that seat. Andy Martins, Christopher Newman, Rick Turco. So they're all looking to win that. In Ward 2, we've got some strong incumbents in Terry Sheehan and Susan Myers. John Duke's trying to shake things up there, as is Michael Selvers. In Ward 4, Lorena Tradico and Luke Dufour, they're both trying to unseat Rick Nero and In Ward 4, Lorena Tridico and Luke DeFore are both trying to unseat the incumbents who are Lou Turco and Rick Nero in that ward. Tridico, of course, is looking to regain her seat on council, so that's been something interesting that people have been watching. It will be interesting to see how she does. Ward 5, of course, there's a three-way race with Marchie Bruni, Frank Fata, and David Chiletti. Fata and Chiletti obviously clashed a little bit during the debate, so it's going to be interesting to see who people vote for in terms of that ward. Yeah, so that one's definitely going to be one to watch with those two candidates definitely definitely at odds.
Okay. Now, of course, you had a chance to sit down and interview all of the candidates at the beginning of the campaign. Yes. So here's a look at what some of them had to say.
You have a communications problem.
There's been a failure in that regard over the past term.
Otter traps in one of the parks.
The business culture in Sault Ste. Marie is deeply affected by the limitations put upon it.
PUC and the Ontario Municipal Water Association needs to be held accountable.
Sometimes the promises cannot be delivered on.
Taxes and the PUC rates in the city are simply too high.
What type of waste are we talking about here?
We need to do a better job in increasing our tax base.
They're in the graveyard, they're buried, and they're still on the list. So are those true numbers?
The community should be much more involved in coming in, meeting, discussing, talking.
Every organization could always do better.
What kind of money would you need to facilitate a dog running leash-free?
We have to increase the potential for employment, for opportunities for our youth.
The biggest solution for poverty is more jobs.
But I'd love to really get into the books on everything and figure out what are the areas we can save on.
And legalizing marijuana could actually, the funds could be allocated for healthcare, you want to talk about education.
I'm also not saying that we need to raise taxes all the time.
We all have our different mindsets on where the priorities should be.
Anytime the public's money is being spent is most likely wasted.
6 individuals are running for mayor, including incumbent Debbie Amoroso. Heather Cook, Robin Cool, Ted Johnston, Christian Provenzano, and Austin Williams are the challengers running for mayor. In our first look at the mayoral candidates, Mike Purvis asks what they feel is the most pressing issue for our city. Take a look.
What motivated you to run for mayor?
Well, I always want to try and contribute to the community, and this is definitely a way to do that, and it's a way to influence positively the discourse that's occurring in our community here, and hopefully I'd be able to change something myself, or even if I'm not elected by the people, then maybe some of the other candidates will look at what I've said and see a couple of good ideas, and hopefully I can influence the way things are done. More generally, I've always kind of had an ambition for politics. That's why I'm studying politics and history at Algoma. I've run provincially for MPP for the Libertarian Party as well. And I think that I'm probably going to continue to run in the future.
The water issues. The bad water in the East End, and that's where I live. I've always lived in the East End since I moved here in '95. I've always lived in the East End. So when you turn your water on and it's coming out brown and they're saying it's okay to drink it, I think otherwise.
And that motivated you. You thought the best way to tackle that is to
address it directly. PUC and the Ontario Municipal Water Association needs to be held accountable for their lack of communication to the people who are out in the East End, who are being told like 2 days after, oh, maybe you should have boiled your water before you drank it. Well, we have vulnerable people that live in the East End. There are kids, families, people with disabilities that live in the East End, that they rely on that water. And it's up to us to provide them with good quality drinking water.
What motivates you when you seek office as mayor of Sault Ste. Marie?
Well, I've always in my career, both politically and in the public sector, have always seen myself as someone that is a public servant and always someone who wants to work on behalf of my community or the clients that I've served in my profession. And so this is an extension of that. Sault Ste. Marie has been very good to me, and I am very happy and honored to be able to work on behalf of this community.
Well, there were two things that motivated me, Mike. The first thing that motivated me was the sheer number of people that had approached me on the street, at my office, when I was out and about in the city, asking me to consider it. A lot of people reached out to me. They thought I would be a great candidate and a good mayor, and they asked me to put my mind to it, and I did. Because I think if you're sincere about public service, and if it's really about public service to you, and it is to me, you have to think about answering a call like that. So then I thought about it. I thought that there was a real opportunity to serve locally, and I really thought that there's a lot that can be done locally, and that I could have a real positive role in the community. So I'm excited about it. I think there's a real need for some new leadership at City Hall, and I think because of my past political experience and my professional experience and my experience as a small business owner in Sault Ste. Marie, that I could fill that need. So we're going to give it a shot.
So first off, it was something I've been talking about doing for the last few years, on and off. And I've seen over the last few years in multiple cities, younger people are beginning to get involved and start running for mayor and other offices. So I finally decided it's time to throw my hat in the ring.
I had gotten involved with the Ratepayers Association when I came up to Sault Ste. Marie. And through them we had arranged meetings with mayor and with members of council to bring up issues that the public had brought to us, and also to propose potential solutions to certain problems. A lot of what happens in the municipal level of politics should be driven by what the electorate wants. The basis of democracy is that we tell them what to do. Somehow that broke down, and things were not being done the way that the people of the city wanted.
We have our first numbers in for the mayoral race this evening with 49, Debbie Amoroso, Provenzano with 39, Johnston with 11, Cook with 8, Cool with 4, and Williams with 1. During the debates held earlier in October, Ward 1 candidates were asked about their vision for the city moving forward. Incumbents Stephen Butlin and Paul Christian, along with challengers Derek Crowell, Andy Martins, Christopher Newman, and Rick Turco, take their turn answering.
What is your vision for Sault Ste. Marie within the next 4 years, and how will you promote that vision?
Mr. Martins.
This vision, again, is a mayor and council strategy. It can't come from one person, but again, you have to promote outside the community, sell lifestyle, and create the conditions, keeping taxes low for, and going around and networking and getting the contacts that the council or other people may not have, that have contacts in Toronto and around the world to bring businesses here. And I think the mayor needs to travel to get contacts. It just nothing happens by itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Crowell. Mr. Christian, excuse me.
He can go first. Anyway,
I was looking at the wrong one.
I would like to see Sault Ste. Marie be the post-secondary city where businesses and academia work together to create jobs in the 21st century. I'd like to see us continue to develop ourselves as a major water source, a port. I'd like to see the city continue to celebrate its multicultural diversity. I'd like to see Sault Ste. Marie designate the downtown core as a heritage site, as a gathering place that it's been recognized for centuries. And I think that might create an opportunity to grow the downtown core with federal and provincial funding. And I'd like to see a vibrant youth involvement in our community. I had the opportunity to meet with the Strive Committee last week. They're energetic. They're vibrant and they're ready to do things for Sault Ste. Marie, and I want to work with them to promote their cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christian. Mr. Crowell now.
Thank you. Yeah, again, I mean, I think I described the overview of my vision for this city at the beginning of this evening. And again, it's not something that one councillor is going to be able to accomplish. It's going to be, a team effort for all of council, the mayor, and staff at City Hall. We've got the EDC out there working with businesses to help them succeed. And we need people in the community to step up and help the city achieve its goals. It's something that if we all work together, we're going to be able to accomplish big things. And by working on all the little things, we'll be able to achieve big goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crowell. Mr. Butler.
Yes, I think I envision a community that's growing, and grow we need to do, and we have to embrace a diversified community. This internationalization of Sault Ste. Marie, let's make immigration a significant part of our strategy, not only at the university and college level, but entirely. SR Algoma, there are considerable Indian families now residing in Sault Ste. Marie. Let's embrace that, because Canadian families generally are not having large families. So immigration is significant. We have to grasp onto the alternative energy capital of North America. We have enough power to power a city of 500,000 people. It's a niche that nobody else has. Let's capitalize on it.
And Mr. Newman.
Again, going back to what my vision is for the city, this is a very important time. And the next 8 to 12 years is largely going to continge on laying the solid foundation for the future. We've heard from all the candidates already today about, how great the city can be and the types of things that we can do to get it there. But the foundation, engaging the community in the democratic process, in our democratic institutions, and to identify services, all of this will impact our ability to achieve the vision. And right now, in my view, that is lacking. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Newman.
With a clear concern about water issues in the city's East End, Ward 2 candidates were asked how they would improve the city's water quality. Incumbents Susan Myers and Terry Sheehan, along with challengers John Duke and Michael Selvers, addressed the water concerns during the debates.
This question is from Algoma University. What will you do to improve the drinking water quality for the residents?
Mr. Sheehan, could you lead us on that topic, please?
Thank you very much. That's a very, very important question. We've been dealing with the water issue as a community for too long, in my opinion. It's when it was first introduced about the new system, it was because there was going to be provincial legislation in place that they had to make the change. But at the time we received the report, they said the impact would be minimal and for a very, very, very short period of time. But it's 3 years later. My stance on that is that I have been communicating with the PUC regularly and talking with them. I've had the presentations. They're telling us that the water, they're introducing new scientific processes, new machinery by the end of the year that's going to bring the water quality, the taste and the smell back, and also get rid of the brown water. I'm hopeful. I think the community is hopeful. The PUC is hopeful. But if it isn't done by the time frame that they are, I do think that we should go out for another expression of interest, like they did before. Before I was on council, there was an expression of interest, and there were a number of companies that applied, like PUC, Aqua, to operate the water system because the people's confidence is shaken and it needs to be fixed.
Thank you, Mr. Sheehan. Ms. Myers.
Last year, the PUC came to City Council and asked for volunteers to sit on the Drinking Water Improvement Committee. Councillors Christian, Butland, and myself stepped up and have done that. We have spent hours and hours and hours listening to presentations and being in on some of the steps that are involved. I said this last night at the library, and I'll say it again. It is a very complex issue. Water knows no borders. It has not been a major issue in Ward 2, but it's a major issue to the people in Ward 2 whom it has affected, and there are some, quite a few actually. It hasn't been an issue in the rest of the city, so that presents a little bit of a problem, because I've been pushing, the Ward 1 councillors have been pushing. It is happening, the improvement is underway. I will reserve judgment till the end of the year and give them the opportunity to come forward with the success. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Mr. Duke?
I think that this issue has been going on for far too long. It was in early 2011 when the issues first started happening. I spoke with Mr. Perella at the PUC for 2 hours on Friday. He explained to me that the new measures that Councillor Sheehan had mentioned should mitigate the issues. They should take care of all the problems. At that point, if that's not successful, then they would move into stage 2. In my opinion, the survey that PUC is proposing for November of 2015 to determine if the water issues have been fixed is just too far away. You know, if the issue should be fixed now, why wait until next November to see if people are happy with their water? PUC is averaging 3 complaints a day as it is from residents that still have brown water problems. I think that PUC, the board of PUC and council need to be held accountable for what's happened. You know, short of some firings at PUC or I don't know how much else council could do, but people do need to be held accountable for it.
Thank you, Mr. Duke. Mr. Selvers?
In all defense of the PUC, I'm sure they're doing everything they can to resolve the problem with the brown water. Look, there's some countries that don't even have running water at all, so consider us fortunate that we are, you know, a little bit of brown water issues is the least of our, you know, the least of our problems. But other short of throwing piles of money at it, you know, I'll give the PSC benefit of doubt that they're really trying to work on this. And like Terry Sheehan said, mentioned, maybe, put it out for tender. If they can't get the problem solved, maybe somebody else will do. But make sure, let's certainly hope that it's not going to be cost more than what the PUC is offering us for service now.
Thank you, Mr. Selvers.
The numbers are continuing to come in for the mayoral race. In the lead, we have Christian Provenzano with 1,186 votes. Close behind, Debbie Amoroso with 1,066. Ted Johnston with 93. Cool with 43. Cook with 32. And Austin Williams with 27. During the mayoral debate at City Hall, the 6 candidates were asked what they hope to accomplish if they were elected as mayor.
What are your key goals and objectives you would like to accomplish in your role as mayor?
Thank you, Justin. So we start with Ms. Cook.
I would like to bring jobs to the young people, to keep their young families here, because if they leave, there are so many things that could happen, and it's not going to be a pretty picture. I plan on bringing in a taxpayer's bill of rights. We should have one drawn up and put it before council, and it will outline where the money is going here in the city. Talking about transparency, what better way to do it than to let them see where their money is going, what this costs, what that costs, the streets when they, you know, scrub them in the spring. You know, I've gotten an email about someone who said that they were washing the sidewalks. That's not what they're doing. They're clearing the way for the drainage systems. And we need to know how much that costs, because they need to know where their money is going.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Johnston. For starters, the things that the city of Sault Ste. Marie needs to do in order to rein in its spending and rein in its taxes. They need proper continuous improvement plans instituted across the incorporation. They need to be looking for cost savings. They need to form teams that will be specifically looking for how to do things better with less. All of this stuff is stuff I'm well trained in, and I can show the people who work at City Hall how to do this, how to get real cost savings fairly quickly. I've done it before. I can do it again. By doing this, you generate cost savings. You don't need to raise taxes. By not raising taxes, you're making the city more attractive to everybody. Second thing is, currently, there is a long-range strategic plan. I've read the long-range strategic plan. It isn't one. It's a joke. We need a real long-range strategic plan that will generate future possibilities for the city.
Thank you. Mr. Provenzano.
I've outlined specific priorities under 3 themes: leadership, accountability, and responsible spending. We've spoken a bit about leadership, so I'll jump to the next 2 because we only have a minute to answer. On accountability, I think council has to limit closed-door in-camera sessions to only when it's essential to do so. That's if you're dealing with a contractual issue or a private human resource issue. The most recent decision with respect to the East End Library was not a justifiable in-camera decision and shouldn't have been made in camera. That's not accountable. So one of my priorities will be an accountability priority. Another part of the platform is with respect to responsible spending, because Ted's right. Spending has just been going up and going up and going up. Since 2009 to 2013, spending increased $18 million approximately. Taxes increased $15 million. Taxes and spending go hand in hand. You can't get a handle on taxes unless you get a handle on spending. That has to be a first priority. I agree with Ted in that respect.
Thank you. Mayor Amoroso.
Thank you. Certainly, my vision for the community is I see Sault Ste. Marie leading all of Northern Ontario in issues around employment, quality of life, and growth. And I see us being able to accomplish that by a number of ways. One of them
We apologize for the technical difficulty there. I do have some updates coming in from Wards 3 and Ward 4. For Ward 3, in the lead right now, we have Matthew Shoemaker with 65 votes. Pollock close behind with 42, Judy Huppinen with 40, McMichael 15, and Tebow with 12. In Ward 4, we are looking at Rick Nero in the lead with 75, and Lou Turco, 69, Luke Dufour, 36, and Lorena Tradico with 32. And we still have numbers coming in for the mayoral race as well. In the lead, Christian Provenzano with 2,698 votes, Debbie Amoroso with 2,380, Ted Johnston, 177, Robin Cool, 60, Austin Williams with 55, and Heather Cook with 52. We have a group of new faces when looking at the candidates in Ward 3, as there are no incumbents running. Judy Huppinen, Luke Gordon McMichael, David Pollock, Matthew Shoemaker, and Tim Tebow were asked about the city budget and taxpayer dollars during the debates.
This question is from Algoma University. Where do you think the city's budget ought to be trimmed or redirected? Do you think taxpayer dollars are being wasted anywhere?
Mr. Shoemaker, could you start this one off for us, please?
Thank you. There are some difficult decisions that will need to be made by the next council. Certain areas that need to be cut include the Norgoma, which I think has been receiving funds for the last number of years, despite not having a formal funding agreement in place. These decisions won't always be popular, but they are necessary to ensure that our taxes can remain at or below the rate of inflation. And there will certainly be certain people who will not be happy with the decisions, but they are the hard decisions we have to make in order to ensure financial stability for our city.
Thanks very much. Mr. McMichael.
Yeah, again, we had a similar question before with cutting spending. I'm a huge fan of cutting spending, and I'm a huge enemy of wasteful spending in all of its forms. So anything we can do to cut unnecessary costs, I think we need a total reevaluation of everything, and council needs to play a large role in that, as I've said before. I know that there are so many wasteful areas. Some have already been said. I've talked before about some. There should be no end to the effort out there as far as living frugal lives and living it frugally as a city. We cannot waste money. It's our money. It's our taxpayer base. It's all of our money. And when we sit down to spend it, we need to spend it in an efficient and good manner so that it produces a net return for all of us as citizens of Sault Ste. Marie. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Hupinen.
Well, I agree definitely with what's been said so far. Back to the Nargoma, I believe I did hear that it would be more costly to dispose of it than to keep it running. So I could be wrong on that, but I did hear that. And as far as the Nargoma goes, I can't see why we can't come up with fundraising ideas to help cover the costs of it. I did a tour a couple of months ago, and they have a little dining room in there. I mean, I can't see why we can't have it set up and have executive lunches, have retreat. We could set it up so that it would be an attractive way to make some money to keep it afloat. I think it would be a great loss to see it go. I really do.
Thank you. Mr. Tebow.
Until I see how the money is spent, I really can't have much input on how to cut and where to cut. I don't believe we should close a library. I believe that's an intricate part of our community. I think libraries and hospitals, healthcare, and areas like that is what draws people to our community. So we would have to look at other cuts when they come forward and make a decision on where we go.
Thanks very much. Mr. Pollock.
One thing after this year's 0%, whatever you want to call it, tax non-raise, we projected that there's going to be this coming year a possible 7% increase in taxes. One thing that I noticed that when they presented this, that there was no suggestion of how we were going to reduce spending in order to come up with, to stick with the zero. One thing that we have underutilized in our city right now is the Finance Committee. The Council Finance Committee is supposed to meet 3 times a year. Last year it met once, it met twice with the public. It's an underutilized committee that we need to expand on. One of the things is right now it's currently made up of council and city staff. I'd like to see it with a community component. One thing that I did with the Ratepayers Association is we brought people of the community that had interest in finance together to come at, and as Matt says, we presented a proposal at or below the rate of inflation, which was turned down the year before the zero came.
Thank you.
We have incumbent Terry Sheehan in the lead with 471. Susan Myers, also an incumbent, with 397. John Duke, 219, and Michael Selvers with 61. We also have some numbers in for Ward 5. In the lead for Ward 5 right now is Marchie Bruni with 193. He is also an incumbent. Also an incumbent, Frank Fata, close behind with 155, followed by David Chiletti with 104. In Ward 6, Joe Krompotich, an incumbent, in the lead with 128. Ross Romano with 94. Grandinetti, 82, McQueen, 60, and Dumansky, 57. At this time, we are going to go live to Darren Taylor, who is downtown Sault Ste. Marie this evening at the Civic Center. Darren?
2014. Early results show Christine Provenzano, challenger Christine Provenzano, with about a 900 vote lead over incumbent Mayor Debbie Amoroso. Still early at this stage of the game. No results in from Ward 1 so far. Looking ahead at the board, at Ward 4, a very interesting race there. Incumbents Lou Turco and Rick Nero are leading. Close race, mind you. Lorena Tradico and 4 are still in a respectable showing. In Ward 5, councillors Marchie Bruni and Frank Thada are leading. Interesting race in Ward 6. Incumbent councillor Joe Krompotich and is leading. However, he's closely followed by challenger Ross Romano, so we'll be keeping an eye on that throughout the night. We'll have more results for you as more results come in from each individual ward, and of course that big Maryland race. Back to you, Shaylin.
Thanks, Darren. We have our first numbers in from Ward 1. Currently in the lead, we have Stephen Butland, who is an incumbent with 76. Also an incumbent, Paul Christian, shortly behind him with 60 votes. Andy Martins with 27. And Derek Crow with 21. Rick Turco with 3. And Christopher Newman with 1. We also have some updated numbers coming from Ward 4. Sorry, we've got Turco in the lead with 165, followed by Nero with 143, Lorena Tradico with 132, and Luke Dufour with 105. Ward 4 does have 2 incumbents, being Rick Nero and Lou Turco, along with 2 challengers, Luke Dufour and Lorena Tradico. The 4 candidates were asked about proposed improvements to Gore Street.
This question is from the Chamber. What will you do to help move the proposed waterfront Gore Street development initiatives forward?
Thank you. Mrs. Tradico, could you start this one off for us, please?
Certainly. Obviously, I'm intimately aware of everything, that area. Certainly, we have businesses in that area, and I'm in close communication with the business owners and property owners, and there are a lot of people in that area that are struggling. And certainly, there are tax incentives through the various grant programs, but people can barely afford to pay their taxes. So there's a little, the city needs to work more closely to try to help those property owners improve their areas. So there's individual cases, so we need to have better communication, but there are many opportunities for the area to grow. And so certainly working with the EDC and various agencies, we can move this community forward along with private sector investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Turco?
Thank you. Again, some of you folks are in the older generation might remember Harry Wolf, the play-by-play. He used to call me Downtown Louie. And I've lived, as I mentioned earlier, downtown for many, many years. And I think we're not going to go back to the days of the vibrant Gore Street and James Street, but certainly we're on our way to make downtown very well. Through the planning director, Don McConnell, we have come up with innovative ideas to help downtown business beautify the properties I just mentioned earlier. I believe there are people tonight, again, who benefit from our taxpayer dollars. The SR Center, I remember some people were against the SR Center, and look what's happened with the Greyhound games, sold-out concerts over the years, the car hockey tournament, the hockey tournaments, I go on and on and on. Like all of us, downtown has to reinvent itself. I've had to do this in my own personal job. I'm sure many of you in the audience out there and here in the audience, we've had to do, all of us have to do that. Change happens, and you need to be open to that change and ready to take any steps that may be in front of us. Algoma University is a great example of what can happen downtown.
Thank you. Mr. Nero?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I took the question to mean specifically the Gore Street area, so I'll speak to that. I did say earlier that we have the downtown incentive plan that includes Gore Street. That's been implemented. If you notice, I said earlier as well that we've asked our building department staff to aggressively pursue buildings in that area that do not meet minimum standards. In the last while, I would say in the last year or so, around that Gore Street area, you may have noticed that there were some 4 to 5 buildings, at least 4, that did not meet minimum standards, even to the extent that they were not safe. And those buildings were taken down. They were ordered down by our building department, and that's the first step for development of Gore Street. If we're going to develop something, first we have to clean it up. The second step that goes hand in hand with that, as I mentioned, was Gore Street has been pinpointed as a place of some excessive crime, and we're dealing with that through the Resource Center.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dufour?
My conversations with business owners, they've told me that they need more than just tax incentives. They need more help from city services. Many of them have complained about having difficulty contacting the right people for the right job, and we need to better streamline the availability of our city services to the developers and the business owners in these areas. I work as a day job as a manager, and I deliver quality work in an efficient amount of time, and this is the role that I can play as a councillor for the businesses in the downtown, Gore Street, and waterfront areas.
Thank you. Could we have the...
We are now going to go live to Donna Hopper, who is at Christian Provenzano's campaign headquarters in downtown Sault Ste. Marie. Donna?
They need more help from city services. Many of them have complained about having difficulty contacting the right people. We need to better streamline
the mood here at Provenzano HQ on Queen Street is very positive. The staff is closely monitoring the Village Media coverage currently. There was a big round of applause when Christian Provenzano increased the gap between he and incumbent Mayor Debbie Amoroso. And when he increased that gap by 1,000 votes. So the mood here is very positive. There's been a lot of applause as the polls have been announced and the numbers are rolling in. Back to you, Shay.
Thanks, Donna. Provenzano has pulled ahead in the mayoral race, currently with 8,125 votes, followed by Debbie Amoroso with 6,809. Behind Debbie, we have Ted Johnson with 459, Heather Cook with 177, Robin Cool with 163, and Austin Williams with 136. We'll do some updated numbers here we have for you from Ward 2. In the lead, we have incumbent Terry Sheehan with 820, followed by incumbent Susan Myers with 696, John Duke with 425, followed by Michael Selvers with 92. We also have some more numbers coming in from Ward 3. In the lead for Ward 3, we have Matthew Shoemaker with 704, followed by Judy Hupinen with 486, David Pollock with 432, Luke Gordon McMichael with 198, and Tim Tebow with 114. While each of the 6 mayoral candidates visited the Local2 studio, they shared with the people of Sault Ste. Marie what motivated them to run for mayor of Sault Ste. Marie.
What motivated you to run for mayor?
Well, I always want to try and contribute to the community, and this is definitely a way to do that, and it's a way to influence positively the discourse that's occurring in our community here, and hopefully I'd be able to change something myself, or even if I'm not elected by the people, then maybe some of the other candidates will look at what I've said and see a couple of good ideas, and hopefully I can influence the way things are done. More generally, I've always kind of had an ambition for politics. That's why I'm studying politics and history at Algoma. I've run provincially for MPP for the Libertarian Party as well. And I think that I'm probably going to continue to run in the future.
The water issues. The bad water in the East End, and that's where I live. I've always lived in the East End since I moved here in '95. I've always lived in the East End. So when you turn your water on and it's coming out brown and they're saying it's okay to drink it, I think otherwise.
And that motivated you. You thought the best way to tackle that is to
address it directly. PUC and the Ontario Municipal Water Association needs to be held accountable for their lack of communication to the people who are out in the East End, who are being told like 2 days after, oh, maybe you should have boiled your water before you drank it. Well, we have vulnerable people that live in the East End. There are kids, families, people with disabilities that live in the East End, that they rely on that water. And it's up to us to provide them with good quality drinking water.
What motivates you when you seek office as mayor of Sault Ste. Marie?
Well, I've always in my career, both politically and in the public sector, have always seen myself as someone that is a public servant and always someone who wants to work on behalf of my community or the clients that I've served in my profession. And so this is an extension of that. Sault Ste. Marie has been very good to me, and I am very happy and honored to be able to work on behalf of this community.
Well, there are 2 things that motivated me, Mike. The first thing that motivated me was the sheer number of people that had approached me on the street, at my office, when I was out and about in the city asking me to consider it. A lot of people reached out to me. They thought I would be a great candidate and a good mayor, and they asked me to put my mind to it, and I did. Because I think if you're sincere about public service, and if it's really about public service to you, and it is to me, you have to think about answering a call like that. So when I thought about it, I thought that there was a real opportunity to serve locally, and I really thought that there's a lot that can be done locally, and that I could have a real positive role in the community. So I'm excited about it. I think there's a real need for some new leadership at City Hall, and I think because of my past political experience and my professional experience and my experience as a small business owner in Sault Ste. Marie, that I could fill that need. So we're going to give it a shot.
So first off, it was something I've been talking about doing for the last few years, on and off. And I've seen over the last few years in multiple cities, younger people are beginning to get involved and start running for mayor and other offices. So I finally decided it's time to throw my hat in the ring.
I had gotten involved with the Ratepayers Association when I came up to Sault Ste. Marie. And through them we had arranged meetings with mayor and with members of council to bring up issues that the public had brought to us, and also to propose potential solutions to certain problems. A lot of what happens in the municipal level of politics should be driven by what the electorate wants. The basis of democracy is that we tell them what to do. Somehow that broke down, and things were not being done the way that the people of the city wanted.
We are now going to go live to Debbie Amoroso's campaign headquarters at the Marconi Hall, where we have Sadie Janes reporting. Sadie? Oh. This just in now, with more than 75% of the votes in, Village Media is calling Christian Provenzano the winner of the 2014 municipal election. Currently, Provenzano has 9,525 votes, followed by Amoroso with 8,019. I believe now we are going to go to Sadie Janes. Stephen Butland, who is an incumbent with 1,552, followed by Paul Christian, who is also an incumbent with 1,463. Close behind, we have Crowell with 758, Andy Martins 536, Turco with 228, and Newman with 70. Okay, we are now going live to Sadie Janes, who is at Debbie Amoroso's campaign headquarters. Sadie?
I'm here at the Marconi Hall at Debbie Amoroso's headquarters. We're going to talk to her now about the election results. So Debbie?
Hi.
How are you?
I'm okay.
And what do you think was the main issue that decided the election?
Well, is it decided at this point?
We are receiving word that it has been. Local2 is calling it.
Well, I certainly am surprised. It's not what I heard out in the community. And, we had a good 4 years and we were making great progress. And, I'm disappointed, but I certainly would wish Mr. Provenzano well.
And is there anything that you would have done differently in your campaign looking back?
Absolutely not.
Okay. And what do you think going forward the city can expect to see?
I can't tell you that. I certainly don't know what kind of leader Mr. Provenzano will be, so I guess that will be for the community to see.
And is there any kind of message that you think the voters are giving to City Council with these results?
Well, I look at the wards and things seem to be solid in the wards, so it was obviously an issue with my role, and so the community has spoken.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time, Debbie. Back to you, Shay.
Thank you, Sadie. During the debate, Ward 5 candidates were asked about affordable electricity within Sault Ste. Marie, as well as the importance of councillors within the same ward working together. Marchie Bruni and Frank Fata are incumbents for Ward 5 with only one challenger, David Chiletti.
How important do you think it is for the two councillors of the same ward to work well together for the benefit of their constituents?
Thank you. We'll begin with Mr. Bruni.
I think it's very, very important that two councillors work well together. My slogan is always working together. It's important that two councillors can sit down, discuss issues. We're not going to agree on everything, but it's very important at least you have respect for each other. And also, with a two-councillor system, for instance, you can back each other up. If one decides to take a vacation, the other councillor is there. I think it's important to sit down with your counterpart to discuss your agenda items. We, presently with Councillor Fata, we'll call each other on Sunday nights. We'll go over the agenda. Is there any questions? I think it's important. You got to work together. There can't be any friction among each other. It's not a competition. We're out there to serve the people. And I think presently we have that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bruni. Mr. Chiletti.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I have no problem working with anybody. Mr. Fata, Mr. Bruni, put the Queen of England right there. And I have no problem working with these people. They're good people. Their intentions are excellent. They have good ideas. And if I'm there, I have no problem working with anyone. I love them all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chiletti. Mr. Fata.
Thank you very much. Very good question. These past 4 years have been exceptional. They've been very, very, very cooperative, very respectful. I worked with Mr. Chiletti the previous term. We had an issue there where there was a resolution that he brought forward. The vote went something like 10-2. I was one of the 10. There was two of us that voted against. Sorry, there was two of us that voted against the resolution. I think that's something where councillors can agree to disagree, normally. Mr. Chiletti did not see it that way. Out here in the parking lot, he thought that it was okay to put his fist in my face after we didn't go along to make it unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Fata. Next, we'll hear from the panel. Question number 13.
This question comes from the Chamber of Commerce. What do you plan to do to ensure safe, reliable, and competitively priced electricity in our city?
We'll begin answers to question 13 with Mr. Chiletti.
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
Eva, would you mind repeating the question, please?
I'm just shocked at what I heard before.
What do you plan to do to ensure safe, reliable, and competitively priced electricity in our city?
Well, you should be asking these two guys over here. They sit on the PUC. Myself, I was on the PUC, and we always had the lowest rates, second lowest rates in Ontario, next to Ottawa, because they generate their own power. Right now, I couldn't currently tell you exactly how low our rates are compared to other centers, but if you feel a third hand in your pocket, you know the rates come from, the increased rates on the PUC come from these two individuals who sit at the PUC and raise the rates. So I'll leave it to them.
Thank you, Mr. Chiletti. Mr. Fata.
Obviously, the facts weren't presented in that bit of comments that we just heard. We still have, we are still in the lowest 25% in the province. Our rates are still quite reasonable. We do have to keep working though. Being on the board was something that I chose to do approximately 2 years ago. No one else wanted to be on the board. I chose to be on that board. Mr. Chiletti was also on the board in the early 2000s, but he decided that he did not want to be on the board, and as one of the board members told me, it was too much work, too much preparation. So be careful when you start criticizing. Sometimes it will come back to bite you. We do need responsible people on that board. We have responsible people on that board. We need to, my purpose on being on that board is to represent the city and the taxpayers of Sault Ste. Marie. I'm there. I made the hard choice. I stayed on that board.
Thank you, Mr. Fata. Mr. Bruni.
Thank you very much. I do sit on the PUC board. I'm not embarrassed. I think as a councillor you have to step up to the plate, and there are boards and committees, and there was an opening there. I'm not a chemical engineer or anything, but at least I will attend the meetings. What can we do? We have to work with the PUC. They have a budget. Their price is fixed. Their price is fixed by the provincial government. But PUC has other initiatives. They have the methane collection from the landfill site. PUC is looking at a feasibility to use the gas to generate 1.6 megawatts of electricity. There's other avenues that the PUC can look at. As board member, I highly recommend that the next council will put in place minimum of 6 councillors to sit on the board. It's very, very important. We are a shareholder, and why it didn't happen before is beyond me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bruni.
We are now going to go live to Donna Hopper, who is at Christian Provenzano's campaign headquarters, downtown Sault Ste. Marie, to speak with Christian Provenzano's campaign manager. Donna?
I'm here with Jacqueline Hamill, the campaign office manager for Christian Provenzano. So there was just a big, huge round of applause when Village Media proclaimed Christian Provenzano as the mayoral candidate winner, and you got a little teary. So you're really invested in this campaign, and what do you think decided it?
You know what? He's a new generation of leadership, and I think that that's important, and I think that the voters have spoken. They're looking for a little bit of a different direction at City Hall, and we're just really, really happy here right now. I think he released a really awesome platform that all of us could really get behind, and I think that Sue's going to be on the right track.
What do you think is the most important aspect of his campaign?
There was a lot, actually. He released a few. He released a few key policies. I mean, revitalization of the downtown core is like number one. I mean, here I'm looking for a reason to stay in the Sioux, and up before he announced that he was running, I really didn't see a reason for me to stay. I didn't really have a whole lot of faith, I guess, in the municipal election coming up. And once he announced, I took a look at his platform, and I was 100% right behind him.
Great, thank you so much. Back to you, Shaylin.
Thanks, Donna. Provenzano currently has 11,084 votes, Amoroso with 9,309. I'm going to give you some updated numbers now from Ward 4. In the lead, we have got 2 incumbents, Lou Turco with 711 and Rick Nero with 683, Lorena Tridico with 539, and Luke Dufour with 524. Over in Ward 6, in the lead, we have incumbent Joe Krompotich with 1,182, Romano with 829, Grandinetti 564, McQueen 502, and Demansky with 448. With the absence of Frank Manzo in Ward 6, Joe Krompotich is the only incumbent. Krompotich, along with challengers Brian Dumansky, Ozzie Grandinetti, Wanda Lee McQueen, and Ross Romano, were asked about the use of taxpayers' dollars.
This question is from Algoma University. Where do you think the city's budget ought to be trimmed or redirected? Do you think taxpayer dollars are being wasted anywhere?
Thank you. We'll begin with Mr. Grandinetti.
Yes, I do think taxpayer dollars are being wasted, and I won't comment on where they are being wasted. Back in the budget could be trimmed. We would have to work with the finance committee would have to work with the finance department and the workers of City Hall to see where we could save money. These are the people that are on the front lines. Back in, I believe, in 2008, we were going to farm out the garbage trucks. And lo and behold, here we are ready to make a deal to farm out the garbage trucks, and the next thing you know, we're buying 2 trucks. The price of one of those trucks, we could have got garbage service, a truck, and I believe 2 workers for 1 year. I believe, like I said earlier, I believe we should start asking the city employees where we could trim our costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandinetti. Mrs. McQueen.
Thank you. We need to open our books, and we need to look at every revenue and expenditure that comes into the city. It needs to be scrutinized. Where we could cut, I can't tell you right now because I haven't sat at City Council. I know at the school board, we have 2 representatives on our finance committee, our audit committee, and they're outside, they're in the community, they're community participants, and they have a say. And I think that would be something that we could look at the city to see what's important to the citizens of Sault Ste. Marie.
Thank you, Mrs. McQueen. Mr. Dumansky.
Every non-essential service should be scrutinized, and perhaps some jobs that are redundant, we might be absorbing them through, I guess, attrition. Just don't replace the folks as they retire. That seems to be a good way of trimming some fat off the top, being top-heavy. As far as any other non-essential service, they should be looking at and seeing where fat could be trimmed and concentrate on specifically essential services. Any perks, just like a household, are taken away. We have to get lean and mean. The leaders of this municipality should be learning, they should be leading by example, right? That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Dumansky. Mr. Krmpotich.
Regarding the wasting of taxpayers' dollars, our city council has told the city staff to identify all deficiencies, and they're identified at regular city council meetings. As far as farming out a garbage truck or the drivers and the trucks themselves, I'm concerned with that because there are union contracts that we have to abide by as a community. These are union contracts, they're binding, and we cannot break them. City council also is working with staff to continuously improve and look at efficiencies. I mean, we have to do that. Why wouldn't we? And not only that, if we can identify any technological changes that can identify an efficiency and reduce the cost for the ratepayers, we're going to be doing that. I mean, we'd be foolish not to.
Thank you, Mr. Krmpotich. Mr. Romano.
Thank you. Again, spending is where it all starts. Improving our economy starts with and reducing our spending. We cannot continue to spend more money than the rate of inflation, and we have been. If you look at our budget, a number of years ago we were 165 million, now we're at 185 million. We are spending more than the rate of inflation. We continue to spend like this, and then we have to increase our taxes in order to make up for that lost, for that deficit. We need to stop spending, absolutely. How do we cut? Where do we cut from? We need to be more fiscally responsible. We need to reduce our spending by adopting a culture of continuous improvement. We need to adopt new technologies. We need to look for new and efficient and innovative ways to do things. We need to look at what we're doing, and we need to try to do it better. The status quo cannot be good enough. We need to constantly strive for continuous improvement.
Thank you, Mr.
We are
Romano.
now going live to... Sorry, we are now going live to City Hall, where we have Darren Taylor speaking with mayoral candidate Robin Cool. Darren?
Robin Cool. Robin, your first time running for office, rewarding experience, if you could just describe it for me?
Yeah, it's been educational and a little overwhelming at times, but I've loved and I don't regret my decision at all.
You promoted yourself as the voice of the voiceless, and as you were going around knocking on doors and talking to people, what voices were you hearing? What were people telling you? What were their concerns?
There was a lot of concerns, a lot of issues that they would bring up to me, and it was about a lot of changes within the city council, and changes for the city overall, like jobs and things to do for people, and not enough activities for families to do, and just a general amount of issues. Just like I can't even really, just a lot.
You mentioned at one of the meet and greet events that the Sioux was stuck in a rut, if I could quote you on that, and we need to move onward and upward. What would your advice be for new Mayor Christian Provenzano as he leads the new council? What would your advice be to him to get out of that rut? What would you like to see? What advice do you have for him?
Well, we need to listen to what the people want, and that's what this is all. This whole campaign of mine has been about. It's about the people. It wasn't about me. It was about our citizens. So we need to listen to them and bring their concerns to the chambers and go from there.
Provenzano was big on cutting spending, and that way we cut our taxes. I assume go along with that.
Yeah, I agree with him with that. That there's a lot of overspending, and that definitely needs to be changed. So.
Yeah. Being a young candidate yourself, there's a lot of young candidates came forward, and Christian is a young guy himself, and I guess you must be encouraged by the number of young candidates like yourself that come forward. Didn't seem to be that apathy that you see in election campaigns sometimes. A lot of people came out and ran for office. You must be encouraged by that.
Absolutely, and I've seen it all over in other in the United States as well. There's been other communities in Canada where younger people have got up and, finally said, I've had enough and I'm going to run. And some of them have actually won, and, great for them. And so I was talking about doing this 4 years ago. So this wasn't something that I just said I'm going to go do this year. So this
wasn't a spur of the moment there.
Absolutely not. I had toyed around with the idea back in 2010. So here we are. It's come full circle, and I'm happy that I've done it.
What did you learn from it?
Well, you definitely need to put a lot into this. So it's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of focus.
Next election?
It's very possible, yeah.
Right. Robin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Now back to Shay.
Thanks, Darren. We've got some updated numbers for you now from Ward 2. In the lead, we have got both incumbents, Terry Sheehan with 2,387 and Susan Myers with 1,876, John Duke with 1,174, and Michael Selvers with 246. When the mayoral candidates visited the Local 2 studio, they were asked what they feel is the most pressing issue for our city. Take a look.
What do you think is the most pressing issue facing Sault Ste. Marie right now?
The biggest thing from my point of view is the taxation situation, the fact that the taxes and the PUC rates in the city are simply too high, and they're going up at unsustainable rates. If you want to attract businesses, if you want to attract somebody who's going to be an employer and make things better for this city, you need to make it an environment in which they'll want to come here. No one wants to come here because other cities in the province are offering lower taxes, lower PUC rates. They have no reason to come here. There's no incentive for them to set up shop here, no reason for them to create jobs here. Without that incentive to bring in businesses, to bring in people who will employ someone, this city's going to wither.
More jobs, tourism, that type of those type of issues. And as I go along and I'm talking to people throughout the streets, they always are bringing me their issues, their ideas, and there's a multitude of things we can look into.
So one of the real pressing issues, I think, is people having a harder time making ends meet. We have a lot of people living in Sault Ste. Marie that are on fixed incomes, and a lot of people living in Sault Ste. Marie that are looking for opportunity. So we have to be really, really conscientious of how we're spending money, because we cannot keep on simply raising taxes, and we can't keep on letting our spending grow. So we have to take a real good hard look at how we're spending money, and we have to see if there's any ways we can save some money.
Employment for youth and employment overall, and making sure that we continue down the path of economic diversification and making sure that there are opportunities to keep our youth here. You know, many of us have lost our children to other cities. Mine, both I mentioned to you before we started, I have a son in Orangeville, a daughter in Vancouver. They're not coming home. And, you know, I don't want other parents to have that experience. So really making sure that our economic diversification strategies keep moving forward and providing that employment for our youth is very important.
The water is big because it's been going on for years. In the residence that I'm at right now, I've been there since 2006, and it started going brown around 2009. We started seeing issues in 2009, and then it's just escalated and it gets worse.
Well, I think that the business culture in Sault Ste. Marie is deeply affected by the limitations put upon it by not only the federal and provincial governments, as is basically everywhere, but also by the municipal government. There's a lot of licensing of establishments, like in order to open up an arcade, you need to have a special license for that. There's other there's other businesses that are also either prohibited by the municipal bylaws or require unnecessary licensing. And I think that this stifles business opportunities and ultimately leads to fewer jobs and more sluggish economy.
We are now going to go back to Donna Hopper, who is down at Christian Provenzano's campaign headquarters in downtown Sault Ste. Marie. Donna? We are now going to go back to Donna Hopper, who is
Work the other way. Oh, yeah, That's all the.
Because
That's all right. I'm just going to follow him around till he can talk. Yeah.
Hey, come on. Hey. I'm in a drink. Who goes that ball? Danny. Hey. I gotta be near you. You're the first. Go ahead.
Congratulations.
Where do you want to do it?
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Are we live? Okay.
Where do you want me to stand?
Right here.
Okay.
Christian, congratulations on
you.
your mayoral debut.
Thank you very much.
What do you think was the deciding factor in this election?
You know, I don't. I haven't looked at all the polls and all the numbers. I was with my family, my friends, and we're just kind of overwhelmed and happy. I think that, to answer your question honestly, I think we ran a very honest and sincere campaign. We said, look, these are what we see as our challenges. We live in a great community, but we have some challenges. And the mayor's campaign was essentially like, things are going well and the status quo was good, and that was an honest campaign too. And the mayor had every right to run the campaign. So I think people had a choice between two very different campaigns. My campaign, I think, was sincere from the perspective that I knocked on a lot of doors, I talked to a lot of people, I heard what they had to say, and we raised some legitimate issues, and I think it resonated.
What do you think this result says about the voting public in Sault Ste. Marie?
Well, again, I haven't really had a chance to examine the result yet, so you'd have to give me some time to think about that, but we're really happy. Look, I had, you see the campaign office, I had a ton of volunteers, and they were really into this, and this isn't just my win, it's their win, and it's a win for our community because we ran a really sincere and honest campaign, and I'm proud of what the people in this room did.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. No problem. Back to you, Shaylin.
Thank you, Donna. Spirits are high down at Christian Provenzano's headquarters. As of right now, our count for mayor for Provenzano is 12,030, with Amoroso with 10,071. The following are the unofficial results for wards 1 through 6. For Ward 1, we have 2 incumbents, Steve Butland with 2,770, followed by Paul Christian with 2,504. In Ward 2, we have 2 incumbents again, Terry Sheehan with 2,951 and Susan Myers with 2,293. In Ward 3, Matthew Shoemaker, 2,514, followed by Judy Hupinen with 1,729. For Ward 4, we have 2 incumbents again. We have Rick Nero with 1,111 votes, followed by Lou Turco with 1,068. For Ward 5, 2 incumbents. We have Marchie Bruni with 2,173, followed by Frank Fata with 1,782. And for Ward 6, we have incumbent Joe Krompotich with 1,715 votes, followed by Ross Romano with 1,291 votes. Stay tuned to SooToday and Local2 for all of your election coverage, and thank you very much for joining us this evening for the 2014 municipal election in Sault Ste. Marie. For Local2, I'm Shaylin Spurway.